maximize your human performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around self-improvement junkie. I should change that to my personal experience and my guest's personal experience, because on the show today, I have Jason Ackerman of Own Your Eating. Jason is a very interesting person, including a level 4 CrossFit coach. There are not many level 4 CrossFit coaches, and in fact, I think he will be the second or third that I have ever met. So Jason is very experienced. He's started and sold 3 CrossFit gyms. He's just really fun guy. He's an author. He's writing a new book. He can help people with nutrition, with CrossFit. He's energetic. I really can't say enough about Jason. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview. And before we get into it, this episode of the All Around Joe podcast is brought to you by the Get Better Project. The Get Better Project is my personal programming that helps you to get in shape. It is ideal for people who are working out at home or have a home gym and have done some sort of fitness in the past. So if you've gotten busy by having kids or having a career and you're looking for somebody to follow that knows what they're talking about, and you can do your workout at home, you can interact in the group, you can ask questions, you can get your nutrition reviewed, you can have all of these things without having to make it too stressful for yourself, head over to thegetbetterproject.com and just click on the programs link. And then you'll want to join the Get Better Project daily workout program. That is where it's at. All right, guys, without further ado, let's jump right into my interview with Jason Ackerman of Own Your Eating. Enjoy. Jason Ackerman, how's it going, man?
Very good. Thanks for taking the time. I've been enjoying catching up with you, filling me in on your fan, but I'm really excited to be on your show.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And, for those people that are just tuning in right now, Jason and I have been talking for the last 20 minutes or something about van life. So as everybody knows on the show, on about 9 months right now living in the van, and it sounds like we need to wrestle Jason into coming on the road with us, because that would be really awesome.
Well, you have room upstairs, it looks like, so I will gladly hop in.
Yeah, man. I'll share my calendar with you after this, and we can set up some meetups, and you and your wife can come out. We'll just do CrossFit on the road somewhere.
Let's do it.
Cool. So I like to get to know people from, how they've grown up, if there were any influential factors as you were growing up that got you to where you are today. Because obviously you've been doing some really awesome stuff. You're really successful at CrossFit coaching. So if you could take us back, how did you grow up? Were there any sports or influential figures or parental figures that kind of molded you into the way that you are today? Or did you just pop out this way? And then, what were those factors that got you to the Jason Ackerman that is today?
Well, good timing for you to ask me that, because I'm working on a book that kind of covers that whole story. And I think most of my career can be brought back to a pivotal moment where I walked into my high school for the very first time to go to class, fall of 1992. And my earth science teacher, eyeballed me, looked me up and down and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to come out for the wrestling team." So that moment really impacted my life. It's funny when you look back on your life and you're like, these little insignificant moments that really changed you. At that point in time, I was probably about 13, 14 years old going into high school. And I was chubby. I was unathletic. I had gone from being kind of the cool kid in elementary school to this chubby nerd in high school, because I just, stopped playing sports. My friends continued, and I started, geeking out in school and playing video games. And this earth science teacher, my future wrestling coach, Mr. Ortega, really changed my path.
Very interesting. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Westchester, New York, and, wrestling was huge there. And it wasn't because he looked at me and was like, "Hey, this kid's athletic. We need him to kick some ass on the wrestling mats." It was, this kid's 4'10", and he can probably weigh 91 pounds. And we need to fill that void so we don't give up 6 points every dual meet. And, he suckered me into joining. I had to, I was immediately like, yeah, I want to do that. Only because I was like, cool, I'll be part of a, cool group. I'll meet other people. I enjoyed wrestling, from watching like the people on TV. I didn't know any different, like the Hulk Hogan and the Macho Mans. I was like, cool, I would love to do that. And asked my mom. She was very hesitant. She's like, I don't think you should do that. It's dangerous. Convinced her to let me do it. And that was that. I've been wrestling ever since for the last, 30 years.
And you mentioned that you had played some sports up until, was it the junior high level? What were those sports that you played before that?
Just the typical stuff. Little league, really. I played some tennis. I was decent at tennis all the while, but, tennis doesn't keep you in the same kind of condition as wrestling does. So, I was a little league all-star, mostly again, because I was small. I got walked a lot, but I was decent. And then you get to that point where, right around that middle school age, these kids are hitting growth spurts and getting stronger and better. And I just stayed the same. All of a sudden I was getting struck out every time and I couldn't get on base, and I quit Little League because it wasn't fun anymore. And, you go to high school, my mom puts me in the smarter kids classes, which, good for her. She wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. And, so I'm hanging out with those kids who don't do any activities really. They're there to get smarter, to go to Ivy League type schools. And I just didn't fit in anywhere. I was no longer athletic, but I also wasn't quite as smart as them. And I was like, well, I need to find where I do fit. And it turns out, it was on the wrestling mats.
And what did you learn from wrestling in that high school experience? Like, was it hard work? Was it the coach was really motivational? Like, what changed you?
It's so strange. It's just I think it was one of those things that just slowly became ingrained in my mind that I carry through to this day. And it was this mindset of not giving up. And I didn't even realize at the time that I was doing it. My freshman year, I wound up wrestling for the 91-pound weight class, but I probably weighed about 80 pounds by the time the season got going. I just lost weight. I was small, and I got my butt kicked every day by these bigger, stronger kids on the team. And it's this weird dynamic where they're like kicking your ass and you hate them, but deep down, you're looking up to them. When you're a freshman in high school, seniors are like the coolest, and they're older and they're strong. And you're like, wow, who are these kids? I want to be like them. And I just kept showing up day in and day out. And at the end of the season, I remember a couple of them pulled me aside and they were like, we're proud of you. You made it. We didn't think you were going to stick it out. And it was like an initiation. And from that moment on, they were like my best friends for the next 4 years. But it was just that mindset of not giving up, and that carried through to be it, going into the fitness career myself, or training these days, or just, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, as we were talking before we got on, it's like, it's easy to want to give up, but that mindset of you're responsible, you're in control, you can do this. And knowing that I thrive off of that mindset of doing more than I think other people can do.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people when it comes to a workout, I don't need that. You can do it. I like seeing other people fall apart, and that's what makes me step up.
Okay.
I know it's a weird thing, but it's kind of that wrestling mentality. It's like, I want to break somebody down, right? And I mean, I want everybody to be successful this day and age, but it's like in the middle of a workout, looking over and seeing other people struggling is that mindset of like, you need to push harder.
Right. Have you read the book by David Goggins that just came out?
So funny. I'm reading it right now. And as I was saying it, I was thinking about when he talks about taking souls.
Yep.
And that's exact. That's as I was reading that, I was like, that's me. Obviously his background was a lot tougher than mine, but when he's talking about running ultras and beating people, that's that mentality. I used to love training at my box, and doing 20-minute AMRAPs were my favorite, because there's that period of time where people will break. And 20-minute AMRAP, if someone's listening, as many rounds as possible, just a long workout. But I love that feeling of you're breaking and I'm going to pick it up now.
Yep.
And I think that's very much a wrestling mentality. You're just you want to win, but a lot of times to win, you have to beat somebody.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to think about the energy that you get from that. And I feel the same way. Like if I've done some longer ultra marathon type things, and when I pass somebody, I would get that boost of energy. And I question now, like, where does that even come from? You know, is it coming from me? Is it coming from them? Is it coming from something that we don't understand? But it's very interesting to think about that.
Well, and I think it goes along with that entrepreneurial mindset. I, I was talking, I did another podcast yesterday, and it was really about how I don't understand how people can go to work 9 to 5 for somebody else. And you're in a van, you get it,
Yeah,
right? And it's like, and it's that same thing because it's hard. It's really hard to do what we do. And then, there's plenty of harder things out there, don't get me wrong. But, it's hard to take that responsibility and say, all right, it's February 7th and I have to figure out how I'm making money today.
yeah.
Right. And if it were easy, everybody would be on the road living in a van or, semi-retired in Florida at 40 years old. But I think, it's that same mindset of just, every day, I've been in matches, I still compete in jiu-jitsu where I'm under somebody bigger and stronger than me. And my mind goes to, okay, all you have to do is tap and this is over. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurial life. There are days where I look at my wife and she looks at me and we're like, let's close this business, but we never do. And I never, just like I never tap just because I'm uncomfortable. So it's the same principle.
Yeah. So that's a perfect lead into what is your business that you're working on right now?
So my wife and I own Your Eating. It's a nutrition company where we help people work with macros and counting their macros and calories and regain control of their nutrition. We found most people have a decent idea of what eating well is. It's a matter of actually doing it. And we all have that kind of messed up mentality and that misinformation. You talk to somebody, they say, I know what healthy is, I know what good is. And it's like, okay, well, why aren't you doing it? Because we all have that relationship with food. And, just like our Facebook relationship status, it's complicated. So, mine and the reason I got so involved with it after I sold my CrossFit affiliates was because for me, all those years of wrestling really influenced the way I look at food to this day. I tell everybody I'm a fat kid deep down inside. I can eat way more than anyone I know. And I tell people I've never been full once in my life. And of course I have, but mentally I'm like, I can eat more. I can eat more. And it's fun for me to really help people see that they can change the way they look at food, improve their life, improve their relationships, because so much of what we do revolves around food and celebration or food and drowning our sorrows. But really we just have to understand what that represents to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think, or what are your coaching philosophies when it comes to the food and getting people to actually make the changes that they need to make?
And one of the big philosophies and lessons we teach early on is you have to eat foods you love. Immediately when someone thinks about going on a diet, their first thought goes to, okay, what will I not be allowed to eat? I should go there right now. I should get it, binge on it because I can't have it for 30 days. And I tell people, no, that's the wrong mentality. What you need to do is learn how to eat that food, but responsibly. You can eat anything you want. You can't eat everything you want. So if you're that guy or girl that loves pizza, and you're on the road and, Whole Foods makes some decent pizza, rather than saying, I can never eat that, I would say, hey, no, you can eat that one slice, maybe even two. You can't have 4 or 5 or 6 every day. But anyone out there, anyone listening can eat foods they love daily, be it pizza, a donut, some cookies, and the point is you need to eat that food, because if you don't, we all know you're going to anyway. So it's a matter of eating it responsibly and eating it with the intention and still staying on track. And of course you need to support that with good quality foods. We eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. We eat foods that everyone agrees with are healthy, chicken and potatoes and bananas and oatmeal. But then we also every day make it a priority to eat something we enjoy.
Interesting. I like it. And you found that that has really opened up people's kind of like idea to filling in with the rest of the quality food if they can have that thing that they really enjoy.
Yeah, because when you kind of have that, goal at the end of the day, for most people, that food's kind of end of the day chill out time. Like for my wife and I, it's like Netflix and chill type of thing. Watch The Office, watch something to just relax our brain, relax our body, and she'll make some frozen yogurt with chocolate chips or something, and I'll have a couple cookies or a donut or whatever I decide for that day. But it's really like, okay, that's if I'm good today, I get this food at the end. And sure, I always want more. If I have 3 or 4 Oreos at the end of the day, of course I want 5 or 6 or more. But that mindset of knowing I'm going to do this again tomorrow carries me through.
Cool. And guys, just so you know, you got to go look up a picture of Jason. Jason is ripped. So what he's doing personally is working, and I have no doubt that he knows how to coach it as well. Because, man, just go Google
Well,
Jason Ackerman CrossFit.
well, thank you. And and that's why it's so important to me. I'm 40 years old, and until I found flexible eating a little over 5 years ago, I ran the gamut of diets, from terrible weight loss in wrestling to I was on the bodybuilding stage doing chicken and broccoli. I was a yogi, being a vegan. I was a CrossFitter doing paleo. And while I saw, bits and pieces of success, meaning I looked how I wanted, it never was long term. And I would tell you, for the last 5 years, for the most part, I've had abs. Sure, I get bloated once in a while with travel and go a little crazy every so often, but it's always an easy redirect right back to where I know I should be with flexible eating. So that's why I'm passionate about it. And honestly, more so than my body, it's my mind. Food just controlled me, where now I control it. I eat well, I feel satisfied, and the big picture is I just feel good. I feel healthy. My, you know, numbers are all where they should be for 40 years old. This day and age at 40, you check out your friends on Facebook and they're all overweight, complaining about aches and pains. Like their big goal is I'm going to run a mile by the end of the year, and it's like, hey, cool. I'm not taking anything away from those people, but I don't want to be one of them. I want to be able to, get out and deadlift 400 pounds and run a mile and hit a 3-minute Fran on any given day of the week.
Yep. Amen. I love it. That's fantastic. How much counting do you guys do? Are you keeping track in your program? Macros or calories, or what do you do there?
So we use MyFitnessPal. We have, we're not attached to MyFitnessPal. It just right now happens to be the best tracking app out there. But we do have people using a few other ones. But we use MyFitnessPal, so our phone's always nearby. And the question often comes up, doesn't that get stressful? Like you're attached to this. And I'm like, the stress that I get from that is, far worth it to feel so good outside of it. I will tell you right now, if you were like, hey, you can't track for the next week, I would be more stressed. It's like anything. I'm sure for you, living in the van, there was 2 to 4 weeks of like, how are we going to figure this out? And now it's just second nature, right? And it was the same, for me, I don't quite remember it because it's so long ago, but we have people that start new and 3 days later, they're like, MyFitnessPal or tracking is just so easy. It's, super intuitive. It's, we have accountants. And if I talk to someone and they're a numbers guy, I'm like, you're going to get this in 2 minutes. It's just a budget.
Yep.
It's a budget where you're balancing protein, carbs, and fat versus dollars and cents.
Nice. Yep. I preach the same thing, man. You got to track it and know what you're doing to move forward at all. So
yeah, I imagine, a lot of CrossFitters listen to your podcast.
Yep.
And it's like the same thing. When you went to CrossFit, you're like, what's a muscle up? What's a snatch? Like, how do I do a thruster? And now you walk in and you read the whiteboard and you know what to do. It's anything. You have to battle through a little bit of complexity. And then on the other side of that, it's super simple.
Very true. Very true. So how did you get into CrossFit? How did you go from wrestling to, you said some bodybuilding, which is cool. I did bodybuilding as well. And then CrossFit.
Yeah, I was in the, I think after my freshman year of wrestling, I was like, Mom, I need to get stronger. Like I'm 80 pounds, getting my butt kicked. My freshman year, I won one match. I lost like 17 by getting my butt pinned in less than a minute. And I was like, if I'm going to continue to do this, I got to get stronger. I joined the gym, and you're obviously young and impressionable at that age. Started doing chest and tries type of thing, and as wrestling went on, and I got a little bigger and a little stronger, there are people at the gym that are like, hey, you should bodybuild with us and step on stage. So I did all that. Went to college, continued to power lift and get stronger. Found yoga for a short time. I owned a small yoga studio. So I really did everything. But, at the heart of all of it, I always continued to wrestle and do jujitsu, MMA type stuff, which I still do. And it was in 2006, we had finished, I remember vividly, finished a Saturday practice. And my buddy at the time, Chad, pulls out Muscle and Fitness. And he's like, hey, Jay, did you see this guy, Chuck Liddell, doing CrossFit? And I was like, he knew I was a person. I stayed in the training industry. I never got a real job. And I was like, cool, let me check that out. Like most people, went home, Googled CrossFit, found the old site. And that next day I hopped on. It was Cindy or Mary, as they used to list it, right? You can do one or the other. I had no idea how to do handstand push-ups and pistols. So I opted for Cindy, went to the Globo gym that I was training people out of, and, crushed myself and got like 6 or 7 rounds of Cindy in 20 minutes. And I was like, I'm in, this is it. And from that day on, that's all I did for my own. I mean, here and there, I'll do a chest day or whatnot with some buddies, but I would say, 99% of my training since 2006 has been CrossFit. And I started implementing it with my clients. And before long, I was like, hey, if this is working for them and they're loving it, why don't I try to get them all into the same class?
Right.
And I opened my first affiliate in 2007.
And where was that?
So that was in Albany, New York, upstate New York. I was working at like every gym in town. I was one of those trainers that was just bouncing from gym to gym, training people, teaching classes, from kickboxing to yoga to spin. And the gym that I helped run was this old school racquetball court. So it was kind of like taken from the 70s. It was like preserved, like it looked like 1970. And, so it was outdated, falling apart. And I'm looking around town for my own space to open. And then one of my clients actually said to me, hey, Jay, why don't you ask the owner if you could just rent a court? These courts are not being used. There's 18 courts, a handful get used every day. And I said, yeah. And I asked the owner. He said, sure. We kind of had a handshake agreement on $800 a month. And, little did he realize 5 years later it was a terrible decision and he should have asked for more money, but neither of us knew what to expect. And that one racquetball court eventually became 5 and eventually became 3 locations. And eventually I sold it to him, to the owner of the building. And that was that. But it was a really amazing journey along the way.
Wow. So when you had 5 racquetball courts, did you knock down walls and make it a big space, or were there just different rooms?
So along the way, both. So I started with one court, and if someone's never seen a racquetball court, it's 20 by 40. So it's 800 square feet of usable space. In 2007, Rogue Fitness was not around. So I'm fabricating everything, and I am not handy. My buddy Chad, actually, who introduced me to CrossFit, was very handy, and he helped me put together pull-up bars on the wall. We, put together this crazy contraption for one set of rings because we needed to hang higher than the pull-up, for muscle-ups. The floor it wasn't even horse stall mats. It was like these mats from BJ's or Costco, these puzzle piece mats. Yeah. And if you jump on them, they split apart, right? So we're just damaging the floors, the walls, everything, but we're growing. So exactly 1 year later, I said, can I rent a second court? And I did, but there was a wall between. So I literally had 2 separate rooms, which imagine coaching in 2 separate rooms, right? So I would have to run out, and a racquetball court door, if you've never been in one, is like a mini door in like Alice in Wonderland. Like it's these small doors. So I have to go out the door, go to the room next door, watch them, and grow again. I say, can I get a third room? This one was across the hall. So I had 3 rooms kind of all kitty cornered to one another. And finally I was like, all right, I need to knock a wall down. Long story short, we wound up knocking a bunch of walls down. So I had 3 courts on one side of the hallway, 2 courts on the other, but I knocked down almost all the walls. So it was just massive, like 5,000 square foot area.
Wow.
That was at the point where he's like, cool, but you need to sign a lease.
Okay.
Because he's like, now you're doing some damage to the building. I mean, we had a great relationship, me and the owner. I helped him run the gym. We really helped turn it around before CrossFit. And the truth of the matter was, although I was reaping more of the benefits, he was getting rent that he wasn't getting before I was there. And he had fresh blood in the gym versus these, racquetball and handball was primarily 70 and 80-year-old men. All of a sudden, I think everybody appreciated, both the good-looking physiques of the men and women that were coming in to do CrossFit as opposed to what they were used to seeing.
Right. So you're a level 4 CrossFit coach, is that correct?
Correct.
What is that? I mean, like I've only met a couple level 4 CrossFit coaches in my day. One of them was the level 4 CrossFit out in Seattle because I'm from there. So one of the early.
Nadia?
No, it was actually level 4 because Nadia owns
or Curtis.
I've met Curtis. Curtis has been my coach
Yeah.
a couple of times.
Well, there's probably about 50 of us right now that have our level 4.
John and Nancy, does that sound right? Maybe.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, how did you go from, all right, I've got a CrossFit gym, I'm blowing down walls in this, racquetball court, and I'm gonna continue to educate myself to this ultimate CrossFit coach? And then what was the Kool-Aid drinking along the way? Because I think that a lot of people don't even realize how interesting CrossFit is, because the outside person hears, oh, there's CrossFit, whatever. But the coaches and the coaching and the seminars and things like that are so good, like amazing, that I don't, touch on that if you wouldn't mind as well, because I think that's really
cool. It's cool as you're asking me, because I don't think we've talked about, but I mentioned it briefly. I'm writing a book, and you're kind of bringing up memories that I need to add to this book. So I'm excited to listen back to this podcast. But, so back then, CrossFit seminars weren't around like they are. There's 10 level 1s every weekend, plus level 2s and specialty seminars. Back then it was like, hey, it's coming to the East Coast in 3 months. Let's get signed up. So when I found CrossFit and then ultimately decided I wanted to open my affiliate, there were 2 seminars on the East Coast within like this 6-month period. I was like, okay, well, I need to get to this one. I emailed CrossFit, heard back from Nicole Carroll, and she's like, hey, we'll get you into this one in Toronto. I was in upstate New York, so like a 6-hour drive. And we'll let you affiliate before then, but you have to promise you're going to take this seminar. So I signed up. So, I was an affiliate before I had my level 1 back, which you couldn't do anymore. And even I remember showing up at my level 1 and Nicole she was giving me praise about my affiliation essay. She's like, I really liked it, which, was really cool. Then Coach Glassman walks by and you're like, oh my God, there's Coach Glassman. So as soon as I showed up there, in my mind, and I think a lot of people do this to this day, you're like, I need to be a part of this crew. I need to be as good as these guys, which was unique for me because I was totally content where I was in the fitness world. I was, having this internal turmoil of, should I continue doing this fitness thing or should I leave it? Like we talked about earlier, because I was like, I was living in a terrible area of Albany, New York, like the ghetto of Albany. And chasing after like $12 an hour, like just, how it was. It was like, I don't know how I'd pay my next bills. It was, who am I going to train, reaching out to people, accepting every one-on-one session I can get. You find CrossFit and you're like, wow, I didn't expect it to lead me to where it did, but I was like, it's got to be better than where I'm at. And it's, that or get a real job. All the while I got my master's degree. So I was like, I'm going to go back to school, be a teacher, whatever. So I found this CrossFit thing and I was just all in. And as CrossFit grew and specialty seminars came out, anytime they came within a 5 or 6 hour drive, I did them. And it wasn't ever like, okay, I want to be, there was no level 4 back then, right? It wasn't like I have this desire to be the highest ranking coach you could be. It was just, I want to learn more. And ultimately I knew my goal was to get on this staff. And I figured the more I learned, the more likely that was to happen. They eventually opened a level 2 in 2008. I flew out to California and passed my level 2 back then, which is similar to what it is today, except the pass and fail was an evaluation on your ability to coach.
Okay.
So I take this level 2, and the evaluators are Dave Castro, Pat Sherwood, Andy Stumpf, and you're like, oh my gosh, these people, they're watching. They, the weekend ends, they take you upstairs at the old HQ, which was, if you go back to see where Coach Glassman started, that's where I did my level 2 in Santa Cruz. They bring you upstairs and they're like, you pass or fail. So these people are going up and down, coming down the stairs, no joke, grown men crying, tears that they're not passing. And I'm like, well, I'm not that good. There's no way I'm passing. And I passed, and so, I remember Nicole Carroll looks at me. She's like, you need to become a better coach, but people love being around you. And I was like, that's cool. I'll take that, and now looking back, it's like presence and attitude. That's what I teach people, and I don't think that's something you can just develop, but I think you can certainly, max out what you're capable of. And, from there, I just was like nonstop. How can I intern? How can I intern? How can I get on the staff? And finally, Dave Castro wrote back. He's like, we're going to give you this opportunity to, intern. And that's a whole nother story. It was, a couple of years worth of interning. And finally I got on that staff, and, ultimately they had their level 3, and then I got put into their level 4 program.
What did interning entail? Like, was that following around the seminar staff, or what was that?
So interning has evolved now, but for the most part, it was okay. You show up at a level 1. It was, you didn't just show up. They told you which one to be at, and so I did most of my interning in like New Jersey, Massachusetts area, because I was living, in Albany at the time, and you would just basically go there and help out. So the first one, you show up and you really don't have much responsibility other than being there, having a good time, enhancing the participants' experience. You do well there, come back, you're going to coach the air squat only. Come back again, you're going to coach the entire squat breakout, etc. And each time you're getting more responsibility, but you're getting a ton of feedback and evaluation. I mean, I think they would tell you, 10% of the interns actually make it to staff, something low like that. And for me, it was always, every feedback was, you have to become a better coach. You have to be able to see and correct better. You have to be able to see this movement pattern better. It was always, we love you. You enhance the participants. They love you. We love having you here. That was the only reason I got to come back. And then finally, I just kept, working hard to become a better coach. And it was actually Curtis from, that Washington area that gave me my sign off that we're going to, bring you on staff. But I mean, that was years of interning, because you don't go every weekend. It's months in between. There was a couple periods where they're like, we need you to take 6 months and actually enhance your skills before you come back. So it was a gut check, and it was hard, but it was, one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
Very cool. And I've run a coaching staff myself up at Stoneway CrossFit before, and I think that one of the things that I've always told the coaches is that you have to be really good at seeing movement and helping people and making them, or helping them to move better. But you also have to get them to buy in. Like, you're the person up in front of the room or walking around the room that's leading them. You sounds like you do that really, really well. Like, that is your gift, to like get people to buy in. Do you have anything that you can share with us about how you do that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you got to get those people like excited, and they just came from an office job and they've been sitting all day, and they may not even know who you are, and you got to get them, going. How do you do that?
That's the $1 million question, right? And that's the book I'm writing is called Best Hour of Their Day. Cool. And, it's all about lessons I learned, and these are some of them. But yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. And I think, sure, I can probably give out a couple of tips and tricks. And, the book is, of course, all about that. But it's really I think that is something that was somewhat innate. It's no different than you and I get on this call and I'm fascinated by you. And no doubt you're the same with everyone you interview. I think that's just a trait some people have. Like, I don't care if you live in a van or what you're like, I love learning about people, and I don't need you to be rich and famous. I prefer you not to be. Like, I want to learn how you got here. And I think, the lesson being, if it's just that you care about people. And that's the one thing I tell people at the end of their level 1 or level 2 or whatever we're doing. I'm like, you're going to be a really shitty coach on day 1. And I know that because I still consider myself shitty, and I've done this a lot longer than you. But your athletes will give you what they can if you show them you care. And caring often looks like, how was your day? How's your wife? You feeling better? You tweaked your shoulder 2 weeks ago. How's that coming along? It's just those simple things. Like, I have this insane memory for the gym. Like, I can't remember my anniversary, but I can remember what Elliot deadlifted 4 weeks ago in this workout. Like, it's just weird, and I think part of that is you train your brain in a certain way. Like, most of the guys listening to this can do barbell math, right? Like, I
Yeah.
can tell you what 4 45s and a 25 on a barbell looks like and what it adds up to. And that was just the way I trained my brain. And I think by having that, you can call back and your athletes appreciate it. That, and for some reason, for me, that's where I am the most me. We were recently on a cruise with Watt on the Waves, it was called. It was like a CrossFit cruise. And my wife watched me coach a class, and she's just like, man, from the second you step out there, you're just smiling, you're high-fiving, like, the energy is you. And she's like, that is the most you when you're out coaching. And I think it just goes back to just finding what you love and finding what you're passionate about. I get excited. I coach in a few hours here, and no matter how busy I am, how stressful my day is, I look forward to that.
Do you think you're in flow when you're doing that?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. I mean, I'm not forcing anything. I'm not thinking about anything. It's just my natural state. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and I think that was why the business grew. I think if you look back, like, I came in the right time. It was as CrossFit was taking off. There was nothing in the area. It really resonated with the people that were my age, like 30 at the time. Like, you're out of school long enough where you want that group. You don't necessarily want to go out drinking every weekend, but you want that group of friends that you can party with, whether that means beer or barbells. And, I came in at the right time. So I was lucky in that. And then just creating that culture and that community was just accidental, but at the same time, second nature.
Very cool. What are you trying to achieve right now? Like, what are your current life goals?
My current life goal is to, other than grow our business, write this book. And it's the reason I do bring it up is not to promote it. It's because every time I mention it, it is a reinforcer that I have to write.
Right.
I don't love, I love talking like this, and I will probably try to transcribe a lot of what we've discussed and, get that put down on paper. But sitting down and writing is not one of my favorite things to do. But every time I tell someone I have a book coming out, it reminds me that I have to do this.
And are you doing the book all yourself?
Currently, I have a couple people reading it and just giving me advice, but I'm at about 40,000 words with my goal being 50,000. And I think 50,000, actually I always look at this book. I keep it in my closet. It's called The Obstacle is the Way.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, this is the kind of size book that I'm looking for, a hardcover that's like, if I hand this to you, you're like, wow, this is a real deal book. And I hope if I give this to any box owner, coach, or CrossFitter out there, that they'll look and be like, I learned something from this story. It's all stories like you and I have discussed, but the lessons that I learned along the way.
And what do you want people to get from this book?
The goal is that they can become a better version of themselves. In 2006 and where I am today in 2019, it's like two different human beings. And if I hadn't battled through all those lessons, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think, if someone would have told me them, like I would have read a book, I would have been in a better place to learn those lessons and implement them. And I think that's what I want for people. The chapters are going to resonate with people that do CrossFit, whether it's the chapter about the guy at my box that would shave reps, or the chapter about coaching someone to lose 100 pounds, or the time I yelled at my members because they didn't show up to run a 5K, right? Like, they're all stories that you're laughing because each and every one of those, right? But it's the lessons I learned. Like, no one told me in 2007, hey, it's probably not a good idea to yell at your members and call them ass for not running a 5K, right? Like, you would think that's, second nature, but it wasn't for me. But it's, the bigger lesson of like, hey, I know you need to run a 5K because I'm a coach, and I know you need to be in this oxidative pathway, and it's going to bleed over to this, and it's going to lend itself to that. But if you don't want to show up because you hate 5Ks, I'm not a very good coach. Right. So it's really understanding that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if they read the book, it will give them that answer that you asked me, like, how does that happen? This is how it happens.
Very cool. What are your current fitness goals?
That's a good question. I would honestly say I don't have a specific fitness goal right now, which is probably an issue. My one goal that's kind of hard to measure is to earn my brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I've been a purple belt for a long time, which my same buddy Chad used to tell me, a belt only covers an inch of your ass. You have to cover the rest. So it's in some, vein, I'm like, I don't care what belt I am, but it's just a measure of my time on the mats. But as far as CrossFit right now, I don't have a really specific goal other than to keep training and stay fit and healthy and be able to do this forever. I think I'll figure that out at some point, but my wife and I love traveling like you do, and it's hard to follow a specific program. You drop in at boxes, you get workouts while you can. And to me, right now, that's the joy of fitness. It's like, whether I'm on a boat, I'm on the road, or at the box, I can get in, get a good workout, and feel good about myself.
Yeah. Very cool. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Well, I don't really have cheat meals per se, as you know, because I fit everything into my day. But if I were going to eat something that would just blow away my numbers, it would probably be mac and cheese.
Okay, and let's dig in there. What kind of mac and cheese? Is it something that you made? Is it something you get at a restaurant?
I'm a big fan of the cheap Kraft 99-cent box of mac and cheese.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's like, I always tell people, like, I don't want any of that fancy nonsense. Don't put any lobster in it. Just give me a box of Kraft. I mean, I can eat a box of Kraft and still be perfect throughout my day, so it's not so much of a cheat. But I would have a huge box of Kraft. I'd have, probably a couple donuts after. It would be more so just like, I don't care about my numbers today. Sure. But it would that's why America's obese, right? For 99 cents, you can get this box of Kraft mac and cheese. For $1, you can have 10 packages of ramen. Yep. It's no doubt that we have some issues going on out there.
Oh my gosh. And I'm actually going to ask you a question about that in a second. But before we get into that specific question, I've heard you talk about, and even a little bit earlier, you talked about how you can eat a lot of food. And do you have any epic food stories of putting down a ton of food?
Well, so before flexible eating, I thought I was eating healthy. And I was about, right now you're looking at me and I'm about 144 pounds. That's like my average on the scale, somewhere around there. So before flexible eating, I was training CrossFit hard, jiu-jitsu hard, and I was 170 pounds. And that doesn't sound like much, but I'm 5'3". That's 25 to 30 pounds more than I am today. And I can tell you now, I'm just as strong and fit. So it was bad weight. And here's why. I would eat what I considered healthy Sunday through Friday, I should say, which was for the most part paleo, but it didn't take much of an arm twist to get me to go out for some chicken wings or whatnot. But then regardless of that, Saturdays were the cheat day. So here I was, not being perfect Monday through Friday, but still feeling like I earned a cheat day on Saturday. And I had, it was around the time of the 4 Hour Body, which I don't know if you read, by Tim Ferriss, and he called the slow carb diet. So I would do all these stupid tricks. Like I would do squats in the restaurant to burn off the because that was his trick to be able to eat carbs. So a typical Saturday would be, I'd wake up and go to the box and go to the class and work out with my buddies. And then we would go out to the diner and get like pancakes and French toast and bacon and eggs, chill out for a bit. I would always go to Starbucks and get myself a Venti peppermint mocha, which by itself is like 800 to 1,000 calories. Yeah. And then we would go to this place called Beth's down the road that would get buffalo chicken pizza and chicken wings. And at that point, you're like, all right, I would lay down on the couch for an hour or two, rally, because we had like a bunch of all the coaches would do this together. And then we would go somewhere else, like Five Guys or, some sort of other establishment to just eat more calories. And then we would always finish it off with Cold Stone, the biggest. So, I mean, I'm talking, I would guesstimate I was having 7,000 to 8,000 calories every Saturday. Wow. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, I would have told you, no joke, I would have looked you dead in the eyes with all sincerity and said, I eat healthy.
Right.
And, that's where it was like, all right, I need to make a change. And, luckily I found flexible eating, but that was a cheat day and that was standard. That was every single Saturday for years. And, I would get stressed out in two ways. One, I was like, I had to get my Saturday up and running because I wanted to make the most of it. So like if things were getting delayed, if people were running late, I would get mad. And then two, after those days, you're just like, you're useless. You're like actually sick. Like you don't feel right the next day. So it was just this terrible cycle, and I finally got myself off of it.
Nice. What was the psychology that you had to do to get yourself off of that? You personally?
It wasn't, I don't think it was anything like very blind. I would say I don't have a very addictive personality. I do, cold turkey. It was looking in the mirror one day. I mean, I talk about it in the book too. I wrote this, one of the chapters. I went out, I had to buy new pants. And I hate clothes shopping. I don't like having a lot of clothes. I don't like having a lot of anything, much like that's why the van life is really exciting. I like to have just what I need. And I was like, well, I don't really need new pants, but these aren't fitting me. And I went to the mall. I needed a pair of jeans. I had only like Lululemon and Reebok stuff. And I was like, I need a pair of jeans. And I always had to buy slightly big jeans because I had like a big butt, big thighs for my height. And I usually had size 30 jeans. And I was like, man, okay, I guess I got to get 32s. And I had to finally find a pair of 34s that fit. And I'm like holding up a pair of 34s and going to the checkout. And the guy's like, you find everything all right? And I'm like, in my mind, like I wrote it down. I'm like, what is this guy asking me? Like, I was just so mad, so upset with myself. And I was like, I'm good. I didn't buy the jeans, went back home. And I was like, I need to make a change. And that was it. So it was around this time, everybody's posting hashtag flexible eating, hashtag if it fits your macros. And I go online, research it. I talked to a good friend of mine. Her name was Ricky. And she kind of was leading the charge. She was making weight for powerlifting and posting about donuts. And I was like, tell me about this. She gives me the whole rundown. Just so happened to be like around January 1st. That wasn't like what set me off. It was just around that time. She gives me the rundown and I start the next day, and that was it. I was like, I'm not buying those jeans, and I need to make a change. And I went from 170 to 140 in the next few months and never looked back.
Awesome. So as and as health and fitness professionals, I think that we're all trying to help this population and figure out how to kind of like dig into this obese and overweight issue. What do you think we need to do as a person, as a country? I ask this to everybody, all the health and fitness professionals on here, and I think that if we talk about it enough, we're smart enough people, and we can start to break this down. But what do you think we need to do?
I think it's twofold. I think one, you have to get people moving, and I love CrossFit, but I don't care what people do. They just have to get off the couch and start moving. And that can be walking a mile, it could be Zumba, it could be yoga, or it could be, join your local affiliate. I think nutrition is the foundation. That needs to be the priority. But I think for a lot of people, that feeling of exercise and empowerment and the endorphins your body releases and feeling good about yourself will be the jumpstart they need to eventually change the nutrition. So, get people up and moving. And some little things, even like the apps that have their steps, and not like my aunt's in town and she's like, I get my 10,000 steps. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, good. That you're doing that. And now it's just teaching people about nutrition, slowly educating them that, some of these gurus and commercials and doctors out there that are telling them this is good and this is bad are not right. And ultimately, we need to eat the right amount of food for your body. And if we can get more people doing that rather than crazy fad diets, if they can do something that's going to be long-term and sustainable, that's what it takes. We all have friends and family that have lost weight and put it back. We need to get you to lose weight and keep it off.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, my man. So Jason, how can people find you? How can they get involved with your program? And how can they stay in touch so they can get their hands on your book when it gets finished?
Well, everything is Own Your Eating. So it's just ownyoureating.com, and then all avenues of social media. And if you make your way to that site, you can email us and I'll get that email. And then I also have the Jason Ackerman for my personal website and Instagram. So either way, they'll find me, and I'm sure once the book is done and out, it'll be everywhere that I can promote it to. But those are the two ways. So if they stumble across the site and email us there, or go to my personal profile and shoot me a message, I'm happy. I get back to everybody to a fault. So if you have questions on CrossFit, nutrition, anything, I'm happy to help you.
Cool. Well, Jason, this has been awesome. We'll definitely have to do it again sometime. And yeah, man, have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Next time in the van.
All right, let's do it. Hey gang, that was my interview with Jason Ackerman of Own Your Eating. As you could tell, Jason is just a fantastic human being and somebody that you should be following. Absolutely. Make sure that you keep in touch with him so that you can get his book when it comes out. I know that I'm going to be definitely checking that book out, and he just has a really cool story, posts all kinds of fun stuff on his social media. I've been following him for a few months now, so I highly recommend that you stay involved with Jason. And remember, this podcast is brought to you by the Get Better Project and the Get Better Project Daily Workout Program, where you can get daily workouts, including videos from me. I write this program every single day for you. It's ideal for people who have a home gym, either a gym or actually just want to work out at home without any equipment. There's a program for each of you in there. I program it every single day. There's a video that comes out with each day's programming, and you can get all of your nutrition reviewed. So if you're looking to get yourself into awesome shape, meaning drop some body fat, get those abs to pop out, feel great, be able to, go on a hike, go on a run, just get yourself into the optimal conditioning that you should be in, looking, feeling, all that fun stuff, head over to getbetterproject.com, click on programs, and you'll see the daily programming right there. You can get yourself started today, and I would love to have you in the program. If you have any questions, also you can reach out to me. Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast for absolute free by going to allaroundjoe.com/iTunes. Subscribe for free by going to allaroundjoe.com/iTunes. And hope you guys enjoyed this. I certainly did. The All Around Joe podcast, where we optimize your human performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around.